Welcome to the Daily Agenda. It's been a momentous 24 hours for the Homeland Party. Well, many of its members no longer regard it as their homeland. They've quit, caused a massive split and gone their separate ways. Led by, of course, none other than Steve Laws, the E-celeb, as Kenny Smith puts it. Who knew, you might ask? Well, I knew. I saw it coming, predicted it in actual fact. And in truth, just going back a couple of weeks when I said that practically half of his members had joined forces with Restore Britain, and he didn't seem concerned about it. That's Kenny Smith, that is, and knew all about it because apparently he knew everything that was happening, according to him. And well, he didn't know this was about to happen, did he? Otherwise he would have forestalled it. So they issued a long rambling letter listing all of their, I guess you could say, areas of disagreement and unhappiness with Kenny Smith and the Homeland Party membership. I know they didn't use the phrase Alex Cave could bore a stone statue to death, which would have been quite appropriate in actual fact, and quite entertaining. Shame Kai Stevens left that one out, as that's something that we actually discussed in private. But that said, in June, when I spoke to Kai Stevens in private, he said he intended to quit Homeland. He was unhappy with the party, unhappy with Kenny, but he would wait until after his friend's wedding in July. And then by the beginning of July, he changed his mind again and declared himself as a Kenny loyalist. Yes, of course, schismatic snake behaviour, methinks. That's what I thought of it at the time. And then, of course, he admitted that he was directly connected to Steve Laws, had a very high opinion of him. He'd been made an offer to become media manager of another organisation at such a young age. Well, maybe he's talented to do it. We'll see when that organisation comes to fruition at the end of this month, led by Steve Laws. Who else? Who else would it be? I mean, and that's a very interesting point in itself. How many factions has Steve Laws now created? Not so much led, but created. He was directly connected to the faction in the Patriotic Alternative that split and formed the Homeland Party. Then he jumped into bed with the Homeland Party and led a split, another faction, caused another faction there, and off he's going now into Remigration now. Or some other name, whatever they'll call it, I don't know. Zoomers Incorporated, perhaps? It's hard to tell with these people. But his bold boast, can't exactly say it's braver. I don't find anything brave about Steve Laws at all. His bold boast last night on X was that the age of the BNP old guard is finally at an end. He's brought it to an end himself, single-handedly. Well, I can tell you for a fact, Mr. Laws, you most definitely have not, because I'm part of that BNP old guard. And you will never bring me to an end, and none of your silly little Zoomers will either. You know, you may well be able to do these things up against Kenny Smith, okay? He's not strategically competent, in my opinion, and that's what I arrived at, that conclusion, after speaking to him many times and warning him about the plotting and scheming that was going on behind his back. And his only response to it was, well, thanks for telling me, buddy, but I know all about these things anyway, and didn't manage to forestall any of it, didn't manage to heal the rifts. It just went ahead, and the Homeland Party tonight is in absolute tatters. So both sides, in truth, have issued a litany of truths, half-truths, and downright lies. The Homeland Party membership is lying about the breakaway faction, and the breakaway faction is lying about the Homeland Party membership. There's also some half-truths and some truths in it. So what more can be said? My own experience of dealing with these Zoomers in the Homeland Party is that I'm thoroughly unimpressed with any of them. I regard them as being fickle, fragile and febrile. They have no staying power. I think they're just given to forming factions whenever they're unhappy about something and running away to create another organisation or joining another organisation and lying about it. See, they lied about Restore Britain, admitted it, lied about it again, and now they admitted it again. Well, we all know for a fact Steve Laws climbed into bed with Restore Britain at the very outset. There's no point lying about it, and lying to me is not going to change anything, is it? Because I've got sources everywhere. And lying to me is not going to achieve a thing. It's just going to cement the belief I already have that these people are just liars and not worth dealing with. And at Remigration Action, I can absolutely assure you, because some people might be thinking, oh, well, we should join forces with with Steve Laws and his breakaway faction. I can tell you for certain, unequivocally, absolutely not. It will not happen. I don't like Steve Laws. I don't like the way he operates. I regard him as being a political prostitute. He jumps from one faction to the other every few months and then claims it's all their fault. And Steve is always blameless. So why is Steve always blameless and everyone else is to blame? That sounds like classic narcissistic behaviour. Completely selfish, quite frankly. Kenny Smith has created a disaster, frankly, of his own making, I would say. And I warned him about bringing all these Zoomers and these centre-right clowns, particularly the Pete North thing. Which is very interesting, because in their letter of complaint, now plastered all over the website of Searchlight Magazine and Hope Not Hate, who just managed to get their hands on it through their little grassers inside the organisation, they spoke about Pete North and his rabid Zionism. And this is an interesting point, because at the end of the day, it was Kai Stevens who was centrifugal in this faction with Steve Laws, who effectively said saying Charlie Downs is not a nationalist is like saying Kenny Smith is not a nationalist. Well, I covered that point in previous videos, didn't I? Well, Charlie Downs is not a nationalist, and neither is Rupert Lowe, and neither is Tommy Robinson and Paul Golding and all the other crackpots like Nick Tenconi. They are not nationalists. They are centre-right. They're cut from a totally different cloth, and that cloth, quite frankly, belongs in a charity shop with all the other grifters looking for some free handouts. That's my opinion on them. And so what's complaining about Pete North is a gross act of hypocrisy on their part, the breakaway faction, because they actually jumped into bed with the Zionist organisation, Restore Britain, and Charlie Downs, and sang his praises from the hilltop. In fact, there's no hills around, actually, so you can't hear them singing. But I'm sure, if you do your research on their favourite environment, the clickbait arena called social media, you'll find all the evidence that you need. Don't expect me to offer it up to you on a plate, because the first thing I was taught in journalism is use your initiative. Initiative. Okay? That's what I require here at the Daily Agenda. I require people to use their initiative. Go and find it. Because in essence, what I call them is the clickbait gang, the e-celebs. And there's no surprise, of course, that Zoomer historian is involved in the plot to strangle the Homeland Party. And whilst the Homeland Party says that there's been no major split, no breakdown as such, well, that's just a breakdown in both reality and truth. It's in tatters. The Homeland Party is in tatters. And I predicted this would happen, because the moment you allow half of your members to climb into bed with the likes of centre-right Restore Britain, it's a surprise they didn't climb into bed with Advance UK. Maybe that was just a little step too far, although I don't see why. But you've lost the organisation anyway. Kenny wasn't troubled by it in the slightest. I wonder if he's troubled by it now, because that very faction, the clickbait faction, as I call them, because that's all they're interested in, clickbait, that went into Restore Britain, have now broken away officially, and they plan to do it. I knew in June they were planning to do it. Okay? And that's why I had Kai Stevens on my show. And there's another interesting point, because in a private conversation that I had with Kai Stevens, we spoke about Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Bollocks Land, quite frankly. A man I absolutely despise. I make no secret of the fact. Snake. Smug, arrogant, smirking little snake. And yeah, he sang his praises, defended him to the hill, and never agreed with a word I said. I took the view there immediately that this little Zoomer, Kai Stevens, because remember, these Zoomers hate boomers, and I'm not a boomer, I'm Gen X, according to their borrowed American ideology. I haven't borrowed it, I don't use it. I'm simply throwing it back at them. I'm the mirror that they're looking into. Look into the mirror. okay? And this Gen X activist basically has been in places that none of these Zoomers could ever possibly survive in. I don't even regard them as men. I regard them as being little boys, in truth. And so I knew about it in June. I knew what they were planning. And as I said, talking to Kai Stevens behind the scenes several times, I took the view that he was entirely duplicitous, changed his mind frequently, was very impetuous, and snakish with it. And in fact, this is something else that I'd like to raise tonight, is several of these silly little Zoomers have been onto my X accounts spouting vitriolic abuse at me. Well, I've never been a member of the Homeland Party. I've never been in favour or opposed to the clickbait faction. So why spout abuse in my direction? So I had to, read them the riot act in terms of, if you spout that abuse to me in person, then obviously there are consequences. This is, they live in the clickbait world. I live in the real world. Okay? You go around talking to people like that in the street, and obviously there will be consequences. That's the world I come from. Okay? And I don't intend to exchange that world for the clickbait arena anytime soon, if ever, at all. And so this is the point I'm making, is they are extremely abusive, verbally abusive, but from a safe distance, because this is what cowards do. And in that way, they completely imitate the centre-right. They love running their mouth off from a safe distance, spouting false allegations. Yeah, and that's why I say that, in truth, these two factions, they're as bad as each other. The Homeland Party, to all intents and purposes as an electoral force, is well and truly finished. I don't see it getting up off the canvas. I think the damage, the fracture is far too systemic. It's far too profound for them to recover. And if they do ever recover, it will not be as a nationalist organisation. It will be just as a centre-right imitation outfit. And in truth, whilst Kenny Smith says Steve Laws wanted to go even more to the right than the Homeland Party, I don't believe it. I've not seen any evidence of it. I don't see anything particularly strident or radical about what Steve Laws is proposing. It's just another variation on the fact. In truth, what Steve Laws is doing is, he had a personality clash with Kenny Smith because he's an e-celeb. And Zoomer historian's an e-celeb. And because these e-celebs believe that being an e-celebrity is the bee's knees, and it helps them to win any campaign, which it doesn't. And believe me, their clickbaiting will fall flat on its face the moment they get out there on the streets and start campaigning for real on the doorsteps. Let's see how the clickbait mentality goes there, because in the real world, the vast majority of voters aren't interested in clickbaiting. They're interested in real world solutions, pragmatic solutions, and the situation in this country is now so dire, they need some real solutions, and they need them quick. And so the clickbait faction and the Homeland faction, or the Kenny Smith faction, they are as bad as each other. That is my opinion. Kenny has been very deeply incompetent, and as such, I couldn't advise anyone to follow him now. Absolutely not. What he allowed to happen with Restore Britain was appalling. That was the end for me. I never joined. I gave him some verbal support. I gave him a chance, despite the accusations about him regarding the BNP membership leak. But that's over. That is over. And the Homeland Party, as I said, well, it's hemorrhaging members. So there's 61 people on this letter of complaint, but you can be absolutely certain that between 300 to probably 600 will actually quit and go with the Steve Laws faction into clickbaitism. Because in essence, that's all they have to offer. Clickbaitism and some participation in protests like Epping. One of their complaints was about Callum Barker, who's been centrifugal in organising the protests at the Bella Hotel, much to the chagrin of the centre-right fanboys around TR, and that he received no support whatsoever from Kenny Smith, and that when it became successful, so it's successful to get the migrants moved from one hotel to another, It's not actually achieving remigration, is it? Which is the core policy of the Homeland Party, apparently, anyway. And that's another one of their complaints. Apparently, in their view, the clickbait faction claim Kenny Smith is watering down nationalism to the extent that it's effectively becoming the centre-right, which is what I said. But at the same time, these people have been in bed with the centre-right, Restore Britain, who don't even support remigration. I mean, come on, for heaven's sake. What we're looking at here is an utterly chaotic picture. But what I can tell you is this, that at Remigration Action, there is no chaos. And the reason why is because I've not recruited these people, and I've not made any attempt to recruit them. I just want to recruit decent, hard-working activists who want to get on with the job of campaigning for remigration. And I've put the leaflet on the website, and anyone who wants to join, they're welcome to. But I assure you, any attempt at faction fighting and trying to climb into bed with Steve Laws and Kai Stevens and all the other pseudo-rebels of the clickbait gang, and you'll be gone in a flash. Don't ever doubt it. I won't be tolerating any of that. I am not Kenny Smith. I am not Kenny Smith. Okay? I am a completely ruthless strategist. This is how I operated when I was the leader of Stronger Out. And I had to expel over 300 people there. Not all at once, but in dribs and drabs, for forming factions to try and overthrow me. And nearly all of them were UKIP trash. And that brings me on to the good news tonight. Is that with TR having openly joined Advance UK, yes, the latest insurance company scam, sound alike anyway, and he's not giving his support to UKIP. So Richard Inman has done a runner and joined Advance UK. He's quit, and Ricky Doolittle, Ricky Doolittle, other than smuggle gold and embezzle money, yeah, he's done a runner as well, apparently for personal reasons. And a faction of about 4,000 strong have also broken away from Tenkoni because of his bad personal habits, which I'll let them expose. That's their business. I'm sure they'll get round to it if they can find a pair of balls big enough. And I'm struggling to believe they actually do. But hopefully one day they might actually go public with it. But I've heard it all before so many times. Maybe they won't. You see, I don't have any of these problems. I just go public with it once I've got the evidence at the right moment in time. I don't sit there and give people, you know, the opportunity to regroup and restructure and rebuild. I hit them, and I hit them hard for a very good reason. It's called strategy. Well, that's me, isn't it? Not my so-called friends and allies and enemies. I operate differently. But yeah, UKIP is well and truly on its knees. Ben Walker is wanting to cash in on all of the party's investments in property and retire. Well, good luck to Ben. It's about time he did, because that outfit has been well and truly burned out since fake Farage left. And in other news, fake Farage has reached his high watermark with deepfake reform. Over 10,000 members have not renewed their subscriptions, and their support has gone down by 8 points in the polls. What's not to like? What's not to like? The road is wide open for a genuine nationalist organisation like ours to push forward the campaign for Remigration Action. But the simple truth is, not with Steve Laws, absolutely not. That political prostitute, he only sticks around for a few months and then he's gone to the next faction, because in truth he's had more political factions than a backstreet whore's had customers. And I don't want to work with such people. I want to work with those who have staying power, honour, loyalty, and above all, honesty. I'm not having all these little Zoomer snakes in this organisation. We will succeed and prosper thoroughly well without them.